In the early morning of the 28th of June, 1983, a man stood on the balcony of a room on the 47th floor of the London Hilton on Park Lane. He was dressed in a simple tracksuit, quietly smoking a cigarette. A security guard noticed him but had no idea he was looking at one of the nation's most famous television stars. 15 years earlier, this man was just 16. With 100 pounds in a single bag, he had boarded the night Riviera sleeper train and journeyed to London. No one saw him off, and no one was there to meet him. He had arrived utterly alone. Now, 15 years later, he was preparing to leave this world in the same way, completely alone. This is the story of the actor known as Leo Vance. From his role as the brooding DS, Miles Scotty Logan, in the hit police drama Scotland Yard Blues, to the cold-hearted assassin in Vendetta, he was a star who captivated living rooms across Britain throughout the 1970s. But this is not a story of a star's glamorous success. Why did a 16-year-old boy travel to London all by himself? Why did a man celebrated for his charisma take his own life at the age of 31? And in his final moments, who was the man he called Dad? For 40 years, this story has been consumed as a scandal. His final words were turned into a punchline, and his acting legacy faded. But today, we will tell it from a different angle. The story of the boy before he was a star, and the loneliness that followed him after he became one. To understand this story, we must go back to Bath, Somerset in 1952. On the 22nd of June 1952, a boy was born. His name was Julian Alistair Croft. The surname Croft was not just a name, it was a lineage. He was a descendant of Sir Giles de Warenne, a knight who had fought at Agincourt. His grandfather, a respected physician who graduated from the University of Cambridge School of Clinical Medicine, ran a prominent private clinic on Harley Street in London. The Croft family had produced many distinguished figures in the region. Julian's father ran a regional shipping and logistics company and served on the board of the Southwest Haulage Association. Born into a wealthy family, Julian should have grown up wanting for nothing. But that happiness did not last. His father's business failed. The family was forced to move from their grand house in Bath to a smaller one in Bristol, and then move several more times within the city. This was around the time Julian was in his final year of primary school. It is said that as a boy, Julian was a handful. Feeling the collapse of his family, he perhaps didn't know where to channel his anger. Then, in December 1966, when Julian was 14, the final blow came. His parents divorced. His mother's name was Eleanor. She was said to be a stunning beauty with features that seemed almost un-English. Some said she resembled Audrey Hepburn. Others, Grace Kelly. But soon after the divorce, Eleanor left the family home. She began working in nightclubs to support herself and eventually disappeared from her children's lives. The three remaining children, an older sister, Julian, and a younger sister, were cast in different directions. His older sister married young, when Julian was just 15. Even for the times, it was an early marriage. His younger sister was taken in by an uncle. Julian remained with his father, but their relationship was strained. The family of 5 had been scattered, one by one. No one could stay together. The boy carried the weight of the Croft name, a name tied to a crumbling legacy and a vanished family. All that was left was the proud surname. A year later, Julian made a decision. Before even finishing his secondary school education, he ran away from home. On a cold day in January 1968, the 16-year-old boy, who had not yet even sat his O-levels, resolved to leave. According to a biography written by his later guardian, Julian visited his estranged mother before he left. When he told her, "I'm leaving home too," she didn't try to stop him. She simply gave him a small amount of money. The fact that a mother would not stop her son from leaving speaks volumes about the chasm between them. That night, Julian walked to the station. He boarded a slow-stopping train, heading for London alone. It was a departure with no farewells and no greetings awaiting him. On his first night in London, the boy checked into the Savoy, one of Britain's most luxurious and iconic hotels. At 16, he likely had no concept of how expensive it was. From the next day, he began working under a false name and age. He washed dishes in a Soho bistro, worked as a porter at Covent Garden Market, and moved through a series of menial jobs. Eventually, the boy found work as a bartender in a Soho club. One day, a customer offered him a one-off job as a model for a fashion magazine, but it wasn't a stable income. He often went hungry. He later moved to a bar in Chelsea, making a living as a bartender. From there, he went to another in Mayfair, reportedly earning a weekly wage of around £30. 16 years old, alone in London. No family, no one to rely on. What was Julian thinking as the train rattled its way to the capital? Only he could ever know. The one certainty is that he threw himself into the great metropolis utterly alone. Then one day, a man came into the bar as a customer. Arthur Pembroke, then 31 years old. This encounter would change Julian's destiny. Pembroke was born in 1937, the son of a wealthy Hong Kong businessman and an English mother from an aristocratic family. He had a privileged upbringing, graduating from Cambridge with a degree in law before pursuing postgraduate studies at the London School of Economics. He was now a businessman involved in various ventures, including a talent agency. Much has been said about Pembroke. He was known for having a keen eye for young, talented individuals and was passionate about supporting them. However, most of this information comes from Pembroke's own writings or media reports from the time. We will never know how Julian, who would soon become Leo Vance, truly felt. There are two stories about their meeting. One is that Pembroke spotted the young Julian working in the bar and was captivated. The other is that Julian's own father knew Pembroke from his business dealings in the Southwest and asked him to look after his runaway son. Whatever the truth, Pembroke saw something special in Julian. He began paying Julian £200 a month to visit his home once a week. Soon, Pembroke established a talent agency, AP Enterprises, and guided Julian into the world of entertainment. Pembroke is said to have taught Julian everything, from how to bathe properly to how to choose his clothes. Pembroke taught him, one by one, the things no one else ever had. While Leo Vance was alive, neither of them spoke much about their relationship. Pembroke insisted he was Leo's man in the shadows, dedicated to working behind the scenes. He continued to support the young man, and their relationship was the subject of much speculation. In his memoirs, Pembroke wrote of a deep affection. Yet, it is also a fact that Pembroke himself later stated, Leo was a normal man who loved women. The truth is known only to them. What is certain is that for a 16-year-old boy who was completely alone, Pembroke was the first person who made him feel wanted. In 1968, his big break came. While working at the bar, Julian was scouted by Marcus Thorne, a man who would go on to found one of London's biggest talent agencies. Thorne introduced Julian to producers at a major British film studio, and he was cast in the film An English Rose. He was to be marketed as a duo with a popular young actress. For his debut, a reception was held at the Dorchester Hotel in London. Among the attendees were the Mayor of Bristol and a local member of Parliament. In a publicity stunt, the headmaster of his old secondary school presented Julian with his O-level certificate. It was then revealed that Julian had been lying, claiming he had dropped out of a prestigious public school in his third year. The fact that he hadn't even finished his compulsory education was made public for the first time. The following year, he won a prestigious award for Best Newcomer. He later completed his A-levels through a correspondence course. It was at this time that he was given a new stage name, Leo Vance. The name Leo was given to him by the head of the film studio. The boy-born Julian Croft began his journey to stardom under the name Leo Vance. But it was not a name he had chosen for himself. And so, Leo Vance began his ascent. But the more famous he became, the more he began to realize a harsh reality. His acting career was far from smooth. In 1971, a turning point came with the television series Apples and Pears, where he co-starred with a popular actress, leading to a nationwide breakthrough. He also appeared in the action series The Enforcers, steadily building his reputation. In that same year, a huge opportunity arose. He was cast as the lead in the film The Salt-Stained Shore. However, just after filming began, Leo had a motorcycle accident and broke his collarbone. He was forced to give up the role to another actor. It was his first major setback. Leo left the film studio and signed with a television company, aiming to transition from a teen idol to a serious actor. In 1973, he landed a role that would define his career, the cool, silent hitman in the gritty crime series Vendetta. His performance alongside established actors drew significant attention. 2 years later, in a sequel series, he played a completely different character, a cold-blooded killer named Ace. A producer, David Hamilton, later recalled, "He seemed a bit out of place on the rough-and-tumble set. At pub gatherings, he'd leave early. He never joined in with karaoke and never told crude jokes." That was the Leo Vance that Hamilton remembered. On the 23rd of April 1975, news arrived. His biological father, Alistair Croft, had died at the age of 49. It was a sudden death from a heart attack. According to Pembroke's book, Leo visited his father's grave in a small churchyard near Bristol. In the pouring rain, Leo stood motionless before the headstone. He remained there for a long time, his hands clasped, unwilling to move. Pembroke called out to him, "You'll catch a cold if you get any more soaked." Leo quietly nodded and finally opened his eyes. After this, Leo made a monumental decision. He became Arthur Pembroke's legally adopted son, taking his surname. This meant abandoning the Croft name and its noble lineage. He let go of the proud name tied to his heritage and accepted the new name of Pembroke. His father's death may have made him realize that Pembroke was the only person he had left to support him. The following year, 1976, Leo Vance's popularity reached its zenith. He was cast as Detective Sergeant Miles Scotty Logan in the hugely popular police drama Scotland Yard Blues. The show's producer said he was so impressed by Leo's performance in Vendetta that he begged him to take the role. D.S. Logan, or Scotty, captivated audiences, and Leo's fame exploded. On set, Leo had a unique presence. While other actors joked around, he would stand apart, immersing himself in his character. A fellow actor who had known him since his early film days remarked upon their reunion. "Back in the day, he was like an innocent child, but when I saw him again, he was like a prince clad in silver armor." At over 6 feet tall, with strikingly handsome features and a melancholic air, Leo Vance was every inch a star. Around this time, Leo developed several hobbies. He cultivated bonsai trees and became so skilled that he won an award at the Chelsea Flower Show. He reportedly had so many that he had to keep them at a specialist nursery in Surrey. He also loved Art Nouveau antiques, and his collection grew so large he had to move to a bigger house. He spoke of a dream to buy a castle in Switzerland. His clothes were all Yves Saint Laurent. He visited Paris almost every year. He loved science fiction films, obsessing over Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he took a voice role in an animated film simply because he admired the director. But the hobby of bonsai seemed to symbolize Leo himself. A bonsai is a beautifully shaped tree, but it can never stretch its branches freely. Behind the new name of Julian Pembroke, Leo Vance's freedom was quietly being taken away. What awaited the star was an invisible cage. Arthur Pembroke managed every aspect of Leo's life: his schedule, his money, and his private life. Pembroke was said to be jealously possessive, controlling Leo's relationships. Whenever Leo tried to date a woman, Pembroke would invariably object. He pushed certain actresses as potential marriage partners for Leo, but it was rumored this was because they were women Pembroke felt he could control. Most devastatingly, Leo was deprived of even the right to choose his own work. He received offers to appear in films by acclaimed directors like John Schlesinger and Lindsay Anderson. Leo himself desperately wanted to work in cinema, but the agency, regardless of Leo's wishes, chose television roles for him because they were a quicker way to make money. An offer to star in a major gangster film series also fell through. Leo Vance was unable to chart the course of his own acting career. In 1979, a new opportunity arose. He was cast as the charming rogue Finn in the lighthearted action comedy series Rogues and Gentlemen. This role was special to Leo. He seemed to genuinely enjoy playing the cheerful, freewheeling character. In his will, he would later write that he wanted a photo of himself as this character to be used at his funeral. "Finn is who I really am," he reportedly said. He performed his own stunts, whether it was climbing onto the roof of a moving truck or being suspended from a helicopter. The director praised him as an actor with true star quality. A scriptwriter for Scotland Yard Blues shared an interesting anecdote. He said that Leo's performance was so brilliant that while writing, he began to lose track of the distinction between the character, Scotty, and the actor, Leo. Julian Croft, Julian Pembroke, Leo Vance, and Finn. He had so many names, yet not a single one was his own choice. The only person he could say was himself was a fictional character from a television drama. In 1980, due to overwhelming fan demand, Leo returned to Scotland Yard Blues. But behind the scenes, his mind and body were beginning to break. When he decided to return, he reportedly spent a month running every day to get back into shape. He said he wanted to portray a more human, compassionate detective this time. That same year, Leo appeared in a film that was the final project of a beloved British screen legend before her retirement. It would turn out to be Leo's last film appearance. In 1981, another huge opportunity came his way. He was considered for a leading role in a major international film, a prisoner of war epic, directed by a world-renowned filmmaker. but the role slipped through his fingers. Concerns about his mental instability, combined with scheduling conflicts, meant the part ultimately went to a famous rock star. It was the second major cinematic opportunity he had lost. Furthermore, a lead role in a high-profile stage play was given to another actor when he failed to show up for rehearsals. Leo's spirit was undeniably breaking. On the 11th of November, 1981, while driving his beloved Cadillac, Leo crashed into a guardrail on the M4 motorway. He was said to be on his way to visit his father's grave. Pembroke later claimed this was a suicide attempt. The hospital's diagnosis was manic depression, now known as bipolar disorder. After 2 weeks, he was discharged, but side effects from the prescribed medication damaged his liver, causing bloating and weight gain. Ironically, the medication's side effects exacerbated his depressive symptoms. On the 19th of January 1982, the 493rd episode of Scotland Yard Blues, titled Scotty, Rest in Peace, was broadcast. In the episode, D.S. Logan succumbs to a terminal illness. With that episode, Leo left the show for good. In a note he left behind, Leo wrote, "Man grows old. Eventually, there is no escape from death. I believe seeking a state that transcends worldly suffering is the right path. But right now, I am seeking the wrong one." The agony of knowing he was heading in the wrong direction, yet being unable to stop, is palpable in these words. In June 1983, Leo took £5,000 from Pembroke's wallet and left home. He had booked the room at the London Hilton on Park Lane 6 months earlier. During that half year, he reportedly lost over 15 kilograms. He ran every day, trying to recapture his most beautiful self, as if preparing for one final role. On June 26th, Leo checked into the Hilton, not under his own name, but using the name of the celebrated playwright Harold Pinter, with whom he had briefly worked on a television project. Once in his room, Leo called a female acquaintance, someone who had previously visited the home he shared with Pembroke. He entrusted her with a letter to be delivered to Pembroke. It asked Pembroke to come and pick him up from the hotel. On one hand, he wrote a suicide note, on the other, a letter asking to be rescued. Did he truly want to die, or did he want someone to save him? The answer is lost forever. In the early hours of June 28th, Leo changed into a tracksuit and went out onto the 47th floor balcony. He wasn't wearing his usual Yves Saint Laurent clothes, but a simple tracksuit. He quietly lit a cigarette. A security guard saw him but didn't recognize the man as the famous actor Leo Vance. A top star was spending his final night unnoticed. When the guard shouted, "That's dangerous!" Leo turned around, lost his balance, and fell 170 meters. It was said that because he landed on his back, his face was unmarked. He was 31 years old. A 15-year acting career, 125 film and television appearances, it all ended there. In a strange coincidence, on that very day, an episode of a historical drama was broadcast in which the character Leo played died. The fictional self and the real self perished on the same day. The following day, the second part of his final television performance was aired. 2 letters addressed to Pembroke were found at his home, filled with words of gratitude and apology. And in the suicide note left at the hotel, he wrote, "To the management of the Hilton Hotel, I am so very sorry, please forgive me. Man grows old. Eventually, there is no escape from death. What meaning is there in wealth, health, or even being alive? I believe seeking a state that transcends all human suffering is the right path. But right now, I am seeking the wrong one." And on the back, just 2 words, "Dad, I'm waiting." Leo's death sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. But what followed was likely something Leo himself would have least wanted. On June 30th, a private funeral was held. A month later, a formal memorial service was organized by his agency. The eulogy was given by a famous actor friend who, choked with tears, struggled to say goodbye. Another colleague described Leo as being like a magnificent, fragile orchid, beautiful, noble, and somehow tragic. The director of Scotland Yard Blues said he still treasures a silk tie from Paris that Leo had given him. He rarely wore it, but could never bring himself to part with it. The nation's most beloved actor, a titan of the industry, was deeply shocked by Leo's death. In the final episode of Scotland Yard Blues, he famously ad-libbed a line not in the script, referencing D.S. Logan and pleading about the importance of life. A close actress friend told reporters, "It's so cruel for Leo. So many untrue things are being said." But public attention turned elsewhere. After Leo's death, the media was filled with sensationalist reports. many based on unverified information. At a press conference, a distraught Pembroke broke down, crying, "He was my everything." When pressed by reporters, he pleaded, "Oh, isn't it enough?" A popular satirical comedian began impersonating him on television. The phrase, "Oh, isn't it enough?" became a national catchphrase, and Leo's final tragic words were turned into a joke. In September of that year, Pembroke published a tell-all memoir. Around this time, he began to publicly embrace the flamboyant persona he had previously hidden. By 1995, he was appearing on comedy panel shows, once even dressed in pink pajamas. The word dad from Leo's note became fodder for cheap laughs. Yet years later, Pembroke himself stated, "Leo was a normal man who loved women." Between the media narrative of the time and this testimony, the truth remains elusive. 40 years later, the name Leo Vance still conjures a scandal for many. How many remember the lonely figure of D.S. Logan, the cold stare of the assassin in Vendetta, the free-spirited smile of Finn in Rogues and Gentlemen? One fan wrote online, "I love actors like Oliver Reed, but Leo Vance deserves just as much respect. The talent, the intensity, the sheer coolness, he was mesmerizing." But when I talk to people my age about him, all they bring up is Arthur Pembroke's press conference and the sordid gay jokes. It makes me angry and sad. For 40 years, the achievements of the actor Leo Vance have been hidden in the shadow of scandal. His last words were turned into a punchline. But in truth, they were the final message from a 31-year-old man to the only family he had in the world. So, let us ask again, what did Dad mean to Leo? Did Arthur Pembroke love him, or did he own him? Did Leo resent Pembroke, or was he grateful? Perhaps it was all of these things. Love and control, gratitude and resentment, human relationships are rarely simple enough to be labeled good or bad. For the boy who arrived in London alone at 16, Pembroke was his only family. At the same time, that family also took away his freedom. Julian Croft, Julian Pembroke, Leo Vance, a man with 3 names, whose true self was only found in the fictional character of Finn. Today, on his gravestone in a London cemetery, the inscription reads simply, "The Pembroke Family Vault." The name Croft is not there. The name Vance is not there. In February 2024, a notice was posted on the grave. Notice of unmaintained grave. This plot is scheduled for reclamation. 10 years after Arthur Pembroke's death, with no next of kin reachable, the grave is in danger of being lost. Fans have offered to pay for its upkeep, but legally, without the permission of family or estate executors, the grave cannot be saved. The boy who came to London alone at 16, the actor who stood alone on set, the man who spent his final night alone, unnoticed by anyone, and now, 43 years later, his grave is about to become alone too. The bonsai trees he so lovingly cultivated won awards for their beauty, beautifully shaped branches. But a bonsai can never grow freely. He always wore Yves Saint Laurent, but on his last night, he wore a simple tracksuit. The brilliance of a star, but behind that brilliance was the loneliness of a boy who was never truly loved. Leo Vance. Many may remember the melancholic figure of D.S. Scotty Logan, or the cold gaze of the assassin, or that free-spirited smile. Perhaps this story can be a reason to talk with friends who lived through that era, or to tell children and grandchildren who did not, about the brilliant actor and the lonely man who was lost too soon.